Random thoughts. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Segeju. Now, this is a group of people I've discussed in another video. And in that video, I asked you to go on YouTube and search the Segeju language, listen to people speaking the language, and then I wanted you to see how that language basically sounds like a mixture of Kikuyu and Swahili. If you understand Kikuyu and Swahili, it will sound to you like just somebody who speaks Kikuyu and then they are mixing it up here and there with Swahili. That's how the Segeju language sounds. Now, doing my research, I've come to find out that the Segeju could be most likely the people called the Tagichu. Now, when you talk to or when you look around, and you'll hear many people point this out, that the Kikuyu believed that there were a people earlier on who were called the Tagichu, and these are the people who basically, we can call them the foundational group of people, maybe not by just themselves, maybe with other groups like the Adi, but there is often a mention of the Tagichu, and these people are likely the Segeju. And the Segeju, these people are found between the border of Kenya and Tanzania, along the coast of the Indian Ocean. That's where they are found. That means southern part of Kwale County and also northern parts of Tanzania, of course. Now, at the moment, I'm reading a book titled The East Africa Protectorate. This is a book that was written by one Sir Charles Elliot. Now, Sir Charles Elliot was what was known as the Commissioner of British East Africa. He was the highest ranking official, British official, in what was then known as the East Africa Protectorate. And that is the land that later on came to be known as Kenya. Now, he served in that office between 1902 and 1904. He resigned and he published this book in 1905. Now, this book is very detailed and it discusses many things about the land that later on came to become, or the land that later on became Kenya. And he talks about the geography, talks about the climate, the potential of the land, and the people, of course. And there is a part of the book where he talks about the Bantu speaking groups, and have said in another video that it was his opinion that the people who speak Bantu languages in Kenya today, he was of the opinion that these people adopted the language from elsewhere. They were not always speaking a Bantu language. I know that's a little bit controversial. Some people have a problem with that. Now, there's something he mentions when he's talking about these Bantu groups, especially the ones that are found along the coast. And one of the things he brings out, he mentions the Segeju people, or they were Segeju, and he makes a very interesting statement about them. And he says that they were Segeju, according to they themselves, they say that they are descendants of Somali people, which is very interesting because the Segeju today speak a Bantu language. Of course, Segeju is considered to be a Bantu language. But then they themselves will say that they are descendants of the Somali people. I'm going to read that part of the book. He says, the Wanyika are found along the coast, and the Wapokomo probably belong to the same stock, but from living on the banks of the river and largely depending on it for their livelihood, they have become expert boatmen and adopted various new customs. According to their own traditions, the Wanyika represent a southern migration and came originally from Digi and Karao in Shungwaya, the country behind Port Damford. Now, I don't know Port Damford, where that is. That's a name that the British give some part. And I'm suspecting this is a part or an area in what we know today as the North Coast, or maybe southeast part of what we know today as Somalia. He continues, one of their tribes, the Segeju, claim to be descended from the Somali. The principal sections are the Giriama and the Duruma, the Digo, the Segeju, but there are many others, and every tribe is divided into clans, and every clan into families. Being so near the coast, they have naturally received, in some cases, tincture of Arab influence, either directly or through the Swahilis, and it is perhaps due to this that they seem to have had occasionally chiefs who became small sultans. But their original customs, like those of most of East African tribes, show no trace of political organization, though we often find kayas or meeting places where the elders assemble and discuss matters of general interest. Like most of East African tribes, also they migrate readily and in severe droughts to which the Nyika is subject from time to time. They generally move to the banks of the Sabaki or some other river. Now, besides him bringing out the issue of the Segeju saying that they are descendants or they are descended from Somali, he also makes, of course, this is very common in this book, where he trashes the republics, the African republics that existed on this land. And I've said many times that the British do not like republics, even though republics are superior than monarchy. The where they came from, Britain was a monarchy, of course, the United Kingdom. So they come to East Africa, and for them, what it meant to have a political organization is to have a monarch, somebody at the top who gave orders and everybody followed the orders. They did not even try to acknowledge the republics that existed on the land. While they mention things that tell you that these are republics, they don't come out and say they are republics. And in fact, they make it sound like there was no political organization. In fact, that's the argument he's making here, that the people at the coast did not have any political organization. But then he goes ahead and tells you about these elders who used to meet, and there were kayas, special meeting places for senators. I call them senators, they will call them elders. These were special places, the kayas, and we know what kayas are. If you are Kenyan, you know, if you've heard of kayas. And these were very sacred places of the people of the coast, especially the so-called Wanyika, we call them the Mijikenda today, where the senators, the elders, will meet and discuss various matters that affected the people. But their original customs, like those of most East African tribes, show no trace of political organization, though we often find kayas or meeting places where the elders assemble to discuss matters of general interest. That's a senate. Even though he trashes it and is like, oh, there is no political organization. But there was. Then he goes ahead, tells you about these kayas, which are very sacred, as I've said. And this is where matters of the society or the nation or the republic were discussed. But he doesn't want to acknowledge them. And of course, as I've said in other videos, of course, Charles Elliot was a very racist man. Like most British at the time, they came with this perception that Africans were not intelligent and Africans did not know how to organize themselves in terms of politics. Africans did not know how to plan themselves and to do many things that they needed to do to survive, even though they found the people here who had survived for thousands of years. So that was the nature of, or that's how he saw Africans. But of course, going back to the point of this video, he does make this point of saying that there was a Segeju, say that they were descendants of Somali, which I found to be very interesting. And if there was a Segeju or descendants of the Somali, what does that say to our theory of the Tagichu, who it is said among the Kikuyu that there were a people in the past who maybe formed part of the Kikuyu society or even founded it? What does that say about that theory? Those are my random thoughts.